I gave my initial Best Picture power rankings about 4 days ago. There would be no need to redo those quite yet, right? What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the garage. Gerald here with you, of course. It is time for another round of my Oscars power rankings. These are not my personal rankings. I want to clarify. I do those as well, in which I ranked my 10 favorite movies from 10 to 1 of the ones that got nominated this year. I will do a similar video for the lead acting performances very soon. And then the following week, I will also do one for the supporting performances. And most likely, I'll do a top 5 countdown for my favorite of the directors that got nominated. These videos, however, that have the title of Power Rankings are what I think is going to win at the Academy Awards. Now, I will do these videos probably every other week leading up to the Academy Awards. You'll get 2 or 3 more of these. And then the week of the Oscars, just a few days before the broadcast, I will do one long video where I give you my predicted winner in all 23 categories. Let me just go ahead and address the elephant in the room, if you will, and that is the online backlash surrounding Emilia Perez and more specifically, Carla Sofia Gasson. I'm not going to talk about the individual specific tweets and different interviews that I saw with her and different things that she said, but I will just say that it's horrific and really more than anything, it's disappointing and frankly depressing. It's been a tough thing to see the last 48 hours as I'm sitting here. You know, I was joking initially because every time I went on Twitter or social media, there was some new tweet or resurfaced racist rant from her that just, they kept compounding on top of each other. And even today, as I'm recording, she released an apology video where she still really didn't accept any responsibility for any of the things she said. She just more so kind of said, I'm paraphrasing, but basically just said it was so long ago, we should get over it. And I'm just telling you based on what I saw. And again, I don't even want to entertain the specifics because that's how horrendous it is. You could Google her name right now and see everything if you wanted to. It was racist, xenophobic, hateful, and unexpected. I mean, this is the first trans actor to be nominated for a prestigious Academy Award, which is a huge deal. And it should be what we're celebrating. It should be what we're talking about when we talk about Carla Sofia Gascon. But it's not anymore. Now it doesn't matter that she's trans or if she wasn't. What matters is what she said in the last 5 to 10 years in these various tweets and interviews. Now, this is being recorded on February 1st. I was just telling you about everything that's been coming out on social media and all the different scandals, etc. And by the way, Emilia Perez is not the only movie that's been in the scandal discussion in the last week or two. There's also been various scandals thrown around for the brutalist when it comes to AI. There's been somewhat, I won't call it a scandal, but people have been calling it out that there was no intimacy coordinator present during the filming of Anora. Some of these stories are minuscule, especially in comparison to some of the really tragic, hateful things that Carla Sofia Gasson has been saying as of late. And I just don't know, even with the 13 nominations and even with all the accolades that have already piled up for that movie, if it can recover. I want to know what you think. Can this movie recover before March 2nd and actually win, frankly, anything? Or are they going to stay away from it? Now, back on January 27th, a few days ago, when I did that initial Best Picture power ranking, we're going to start with Best Picture. This is what I had. Now, nobody really came at me online. I had Emilia Perez at number 1 in my power rankings. I did a video the next day with my buddy Jonathan Fuji. He also thought Emilia Perez was going to win, and that would have been on the 28th or 29th. And then, holy hell, an avalanche came piling down on top of that film and its prospects. So obviously, with the controversies surrounding that film, especially right now as I'm sitting here, we're in the thick of it. She just deleted her Twitter account. The Academy unfollowed her on Instagram. A lot of weird drama is going on surrounding these different things that have come to light. So with that being said, with a little thing like the Academy unfollowing her on social media, for example, would illustrate to me they know what's going on. A lot of times when these controversies pop up, or when these news stories are resurfaced, especially in the age of social media. A lot of times the industry insiders that are voting on the Academy Awards don't really care, and in some cases they might not even know. Obviously, my wife is not an Academy voter, but I was talking to her today, and I said to her, can you believe this Emilia Perez stuff? And she hadn't even seen it in her newsfeed. So it is possible that a lot of members that are voting on these various awards over the next month may not have read these tweets, may not know the depth of how dark and demented these comments were, or frankly, maybe they're just a huge fan of the movie, an international voter, and they just don't care. However, with the severity of what I've seen come out in the last few days about her specifically and surrounding the movie Emilia Perez, even the filmmaker Jock Audard had some pretty iffy comments when he said that the Spanish language was intended for the poor and underdeveloped countries of the world. I'm setting all this up to let you know that the power rankings I showed you a second ago, here they are, were from January 27th. My initial power rankings just a couple days after the nominations came out. Really, I wrote those like the day they came out. They changed really, really quickly. And mostly, I wouldn't do this video that close to those initial predictions. So here's what we're looking at. And I'm going to list these in order of, the first one I list is the one that I think is currently the front runner to win the award for Best Picture. As I go down, the possibility decreases a little bit until we get down to number 10, which I think stands no chance as we're sitting here on February 1st. Again, I just want to remind you, these are not my personal rankings. I did rank these films in my top 10, how I prefer them. I'll put a tag on this video for you if you want to go back and watch. But for my power rankings and predicted winners, here we go. I'm going to start out with my current predicted winner, The Brutalist. Anora would be number 2. Conclave at 3. A Complete Unknown at 4. At number 5, which by the way was a huge leap, is I'm Still Here, the Brazilian international film that is gaining a ton of traction right now. Wicked would actually stay where it was at number 6, and then dropping all the way down to number 7 was my initial number 1, and that is the aforementioned Emilia Perez. Rounding out the 10 would be The Substance, Dune Part 2, and Nickel Boys. So there's the picture nominees on the screen there, and how I rank them in order of likelihood to win. I've talked about why this all changed for me in the matter of 3 to 4 days. And normally it would be maybe on a weekly basis, and that's usually after an award show has aired and something crazy has happened or unexpected, which in this case would probably be the Critics' Choice Awards, as that's coming up about 5 days from time of recording. It's going to be this upcoming Friday. I will have a reaction to those awards as well. But since nothing's really happened on the awards circuit with the exception of these news stories and scandalous tweets, etc., that have come out, along with those other kind of minor controversies that I spoke of as well, it shifted things around a little bit, I think. I did a chat GPT session, which I don't do a whole lot. Has anybody or any movie ever been disqualified or had their nomination rescinded because of a scandal? There weren't very many. I think there was like maybe 4 of them that had ever been rescinded. And it was never really for inappropriate behavior or a public display of hate or bigotry or anything like that, which is kind of what we're dealing with here. It was more so for rules of when it was submitted, year of release, and finding out after the fact that it was made in a different year. But there was nothing really concrete that told me, okay, we have a precedent for what's going on with Carla Sofia Gasson. And we don't, based on my research. So if her nomination was to be rescinded, and I'm not saying necessarily that it should be. I'm not saying I would be mad if it was either, because what I've read is frankly disgusting. And like I said earlier, disappointing, because I wasn't pulling for her to win the Best Actress award, or I definitely was not pulling for the movie to win Best Movie. I've been very vocal about my dislike of the film, but I was pulling for the narrative that she had, that she was kind of leading the charge and a beacon of light in the middle of this darkness surrounding the trans community right now with what's going on in America specifically. And now that doesn't matter. Like, that doesn't exist anymore. The narrative that was so bright and frankly revolutionary for that community is when she was nominated is now gone, really, because nobody can focus on anything except these hateful images and words that she has expressed over the last 5 to 10 years that, like I've said 10 times on this video already, are very, very horrid and ugly. They really, really are. I dropped it down to 7 for now. It's going to plummet. I mean, this could end up a situation where Dune Part 2 has a better shot, which, the Academy loves snubbing Denis, and, it did not get nearly enough nominations this year. But Emilia Perez and the controversy surrounding it, this is going to be a situation to watch if you follow the Oscars. And it's going to be an unprecedented situation. That's what I was getting at with the Oscars history with this stuff. There's nothing like this before. There has not been a situation like this that we've encountered in the Oscars race where it's been so specific to a nominee, and in this case, really a film that was already kind of receiving backlash, even though it was more so from like a critical standpoint, but it was receiving backlash for getting so many nominations, 13, which is one shy of the record, as I'm sure you know by now. And it also ties films like Oppenheimer from last year, which those are not the same, guys. I mean, whether you like Oppenheimer or not, those two films' quality are not the same. It was already kind of in a spotlight for that reason, of kind of like most people in the world, like the general audience, if you will, that had seen it or knew of it were like, that's the multiple Oscar nominated film. But I've been saying for the last couple months that the industry, which is not the general audience typically, loves this movie. They have been talking about how much they love it. They have been having screenings, inviting people to see it. They have been going to Q&As for it. I've heard various celebrities on podcasts that I respect mentioning their favorite films of the year, and Emilia Perez is always in that discussion. And it has baffled me and thousands of others that follow the Oscars because, not to be mean, but it just does not seem like a worthy production to receive that much acclaim from the most prestigious Hollywood institution. If it got 3 or 4 nominations, we would probably still roll our eyes, but it wouldn't be on the level of like, you've got the light shining on you now. And because that light was shining on you, some stuff came out big time. So that's enough about Emilia Perez for now until we get to our lead actress power rankings. Point is, right now, Emilia Perez plummeted in 3 days, plummeted from number 1, seemed like the clear-cut frontrunner with 13 noms and a director nom and an editing nom and a screenplay nom. I mean, the big nominations that they needed. In fact, they had practically everything that they were eligible for. If Selena Gomez had gotten her supporting actress nomination for this, they would have tied the record for nominations. And some people had her at like number 6 or 7. Like, she was right there. But I'm taking the controversy into account, and I'm putting a lot of merit behind that and behind these rankings. Therefore, it's nowhere near the top spot now. It's dead, in my opinion. I'm just telling you, if there is a huge PR swing and Netflix or the Emilia Perez team or Ayudard or somebody does something, or I don't even know what they could do to make up for this somehow. I mentioned the rescinding of the nomination earlier. I'm not necessarily saying I want that, because that's not what I'm saying. That's not up to me. If it were rescinded, and this is hypothetical, on February 1st, I'm recording this, and Carla is out of the conversation and she's not a nominee anymore, whatever they do in place of her, it's unprecedented. I have no idea. I don't know if then the 6th person would be in there. I don't know. Then does the movie as a whole, or like Zoe Saldana, for example, suffer in the long term? I don't think anybody, and this is just my opinion, I don't think anybody, really one person, but I definitely don't think any category, the majority of the votes are going to go to this film after what we've seen the last few days. So if Carla stays in the race and everything stays as is, regardless of apologies or whatever, regardless, frankly, of wins on the circuit, because you got Critics' Choice coming up, but the voting is still open for a lot of these things, guys. All this stuff's happening while the voting is open. I don't see it winning anything. I see it blanking with 13 nominations, which has happened before. Benjamin Button, Power of the Dog. I mean, there's been some where it's happened. It's rare. I mean, to have 13 and come up 0 is pretty rare, honestly. It actually has happened quite a bit recently, which was kind of weird. If you get the most nominations, you're leaving with something. I mean, even if it's one award, you're going to leave with something. But I think Emilia Perez is going to walk away empty. If Carla's nomination for actress is rescinded, And whatever that looks like, I'm asking you guys. I don't know. Does Emilia Perez win anything at that point? Because then does the Academy go, well, the black sheep, the outlier, the bad apple has been removed from the situation. The rest of the production shouldn't suffer. They obviously already love the movie. Now, I don't like the movie, so I still don't want it to win anything. But I think then it does have a chance. Maybe not for picture, because that's obviously probably the most illustrious award. That's still kind of honoring her. She's a titular character in this movie. But does Zoe win? Maybe. Does it get best song, original song for El Mal, which is probably the front runner at this point? I don't know. I'm asking you guys. I really don't know. This is an unprecedented thing. I've been following the Oscars since the 90s. On my YouTube channel, I've only been doing it for about 3 or 4 years. But in my life, I've been doing it for over 20 years. Every year, I get into this shit. I make predictions. I do pools at work. I do all this stuff. And I've never seen anything like this where a public story, or in this case, multiple stories, literally affects the outcome of the number one most nominated film. I've never seen it. The closest thing I can even think of off the top of my head, because I didn't research this prior to making the video, is when Casey Affleck was nominated for Manchester by the Sea, and he was thought to be the front runner for a long time. He was winning other awards, precursors, and all the stories came out about the sexual assaults and that he was basically a creep, and people were like, are they going to let him go to the show? Are they going to continue to leave him among the nominees? And all this stuff, and it was a legal battle at the time, and it hadn't been finalized in the courts and all that stuff, but the public eye and what we thought was what we thought, if we were following the Oscars. And comes around to Oscars night, and he wins Best Actor for Manchester by the Sea. Now, was it a great performance? Yes. Was I moved by that acting performance when I saw that film? Absolutely. One of the more heartbreaking, powerful performances I've seen in the last 10 years. That was in the movie. That was the work that he was doing in the film. His personal life, does that overshadow what we're awarding here? Now, that's the closest thing I can even think of since I've been covering the Oscars. Didn't I say like 10 minutes ago that was it for Emilia Perez? I'm sorry. I just haven't really talked about this controversy, and I just feel like it's affecting the race so much, but also it's just so disheartening as a cinema fan, as a film fan. I mean, this is a movie that I have been vocal about. I just dislike it. I don't like it. I don't think it should be nominated for anything. Maybe Zoe Saldana, and that's about it. It got 13 nominations, which is not a little bit. That's a lot. And if it's going to be in the spotlight like that, and it's going to be carrying that torch for the most nominated film by 3 this year, over films like A Complete Unknown and The Brutalist and Conclave, I mean, these are all amazing productions, then let's have that storyline with the trans representation. Let's have that, because that's important, right? Especially in our climate today. But we don't have that now. Regardless of what happens with the awards, that's nothing compared to the rights of these marginalized communities, of which I include the trans or the LGBT community in right now. This could have been big for them to have that. And now their representative in this grand thing that we call award season is Carlos Ovilla Gasson. So their representative now is shameful, and they don't have pride in that now. And that sucks. It really, really sucks, regardless of anything that has anything to do with awards. By the way, that was like over 20 minutes of me ranting about Emilia Perez. I'm so sorry. I thought I was going to touch on it and then move on. Let me know what you guys think, though, seriously, down in the comments. Let me do my power rankings now. Okay, because of everything that I just said the last 20 minutes, if you're still here, The Brutalist is now my number 1. Basically, I moved The Brutalist up from 2 to 1. I always thought that it was going to probably give Emilia Perez the most run for its money, pre-scandals, I mean. So I think that's my obvious number 1 pick. Another reason why I would put it at number 1 is because it already has the Globe win for drama, including Courbet as well. And then on top of that, obviously none of the other major televised awards have happened yet, but it has the trifecta of nominations that I think you need. Doesn't always happen. I know there's a few instances where this hasn't happened. In the last 30 years, it's like 80-something%. If you have screenplay, editing, and director nominations, if you have those nominations, and definitely if you have the wins come Oscars night, of course we won't know that till Oscars night, but if you have those nominations and you're in the Best Picture category, which you would be at that point, you win. Now, not always. Like I said, 80-ish, 82 or something I saw when I read about it a few weeks ago. It's a lot. It happens a lot. The Brutalist, Anora, and Emilia Perez have all of those. Emilia Perez is obviously not even in that equation anymore. So I'm not even including that as part of the lifting up of that in the rankings, because I think these controversies are going to outweigh that with voting still being open. But I do think the Brutalist and Honora are neck and neck now. So I'm putting the Brutalist at number 1 because I think Courbet stands the best chance for director, and we'll get there in just a second. So that's the edge for me. But what I will say, and this obviously could change on the circuit too, if Mikey Madison starts winning on televised awards, if Sean Baker wins the DGA, if things start to happen while voting is open for the Academy, then obviously these rankings will change, and I will update you guys to let you know. But this is all hypothetical at this point. This is all prophetic on my part. That's the point of predictions, right? But I think that the Brutalist wins with the Courbet kind of directing sweep that we might be in for. If Oscars night comes and you're watching the broadcast, okay, and you may know this if you follow the Oscars very closely, but if you're watching the broadcast, usually they're going to give out editing pretty early. Not early, but, first hour or so, they'll give away editing, okay? They will probably have already done one of the supporting categories too, which could be actor or actress. Sometimes they pick one, the others. I've seen them actually do both early in the broadcast before, but the Brutalist has a performer and supporting actress in Felicity Jones. And then, of course, they have editing nomination, and so does Honora. So the reason I say that is because whoever wins Best Editing at that first of the major trifecta awards that I'm talking about, perk up. Because that's when you can start looking at your scorecard and going, okay, all right. Editing went to Honora. It didn't go to the Brutalist. Okay. And then you keep watching, right? And then eventually we're going to get to screenplay, okay? And in this case, they're going to be an original screenplay against each other, right? Honora and the Brutalist. And so you look at it and you go, Honora got editing. And this is hypothetical, but I'm telling you to think about this when you're watching it. Remember me. Original screenplay, Sean Baker wins for Honora. At that moment, right there, at that moment in time, and this is obviously if this happens, and this could be the same for the Brutalist too. If Honora has editing and screenplay at 2/3 of the way through the night, and then they get to director, it doesn't matter. Honora's winning Best Picture. The movie that wins 2 out of 3 of those 3 major nominations, I'm talking about screenplay, editing, and director. If you win 2 out of 3 of those, your likelihood of winning Best Picture is like 83%. So if the Brutalist wins editing and screenplay, that's your Best Picture winner. If Honora wins editing and screenplay, that's your Best Picture winner. Now, of course, there's the other 17%, right? So, of course, that could not happen too, but the likelihood is very high. Courbet is going to win director. As we're sitting here, I don't see a reason why he wouldn't. Now, if stuff happens on the circuit, like I said, then of course I'll change that prediction. But as we're sitting here, he's the clear frontrunner for director to me. But that might not matter. That could be a lone directing win, not lone, but that could be a directing win without the picture win, right? That could happen. That's happened before, especially if it gets some text. It's probably going to get score, right? Original score. It's definitely very high on the list for like production design. It could get stuff and director, but it's not going to get picture without 2 of the 3. Another hypothetical situation, if Courbet is your frontrunner and he does end up winning director and they get best editing, that's your Best Picture winner, because all Baker has is a screenplay. So they honor him by giving him the screenplay win. But that's it. You got to have 2 of 3 of those. That's my way for you to gauge your Oscar predictions if you do them. Now, like I said, it doesn't pan out every single time, but it's a stat that has got me thinking over the last 20 years or so that, man, this seems to be a pretty good precursor in its own right on the night of the Oscars. Now, of course, by then you've already put in your pool and everything, but it's just something to think about as you're watching the broadcast, or if you follow this in future years. It's something that I've noticed that those bodies cross over and go hand in hand very, very favorably when you're trying to predict Best Picture. My point is, if you have those 3 and you're nominated for Best Picture, you're going to be high in my power rankings leading up to the Academy Awards, and that's why the Brutalist and Honora sit at the top. Frankly, Conclave as well, except Conclave is missing the director for Edward Berger. That's why I've got Conclave at 3. I think Conclave could be a surprise. I don't know if surprise is the right word, but it could be an unexpected win on Oscars night, even if it didn't win anything the rest of the season, because it's going to be liked, kind of universally liked the most. It's a preferential ranked it's like the conclave. It's like what they do in conclave in the Academy voting for Best Picture. They rank them. They get rid of the 10, whoever got the 10th least. They get rid of them and they redistribute those votes. They do it all over again. They keep going until they get down to one picture or somebody gets over, I think, 50% or 60%. That's your Best Picture. So it's literally like a conclave type of voting system. A complete unknown. I said this when I did my initial power rankings, guys. I had it at number 6 then. Same thing with I'm Still Here, which I'll go ahead and talk about both of these. Those two movies I have right now at 4 and 5. Watch out for those two films. A Complete Unknown, obviously the Mangold biopic about Bob Dylan, and I'm Still Here, the beautiful, phenomenally knocked me on my ass, independent Brazilian international film that I just saw back in November and rewatched recently and couldn't stop crying. I did a review here on the channel for it. You can check it out. I'll put a tag in here for you. Those two movies are at the benefit of huge momentum right now. Huge. A Complete Unknown is slaying at the box office, and I mean worldwide. Check your entertainment news. Check your box office numbers if you don't believe me. That movie is blowing up. It came out Christmas Day. We're into February, and it's still killing. It appeals to multiple age brackets because you have Timothée Chalamet, literally, myself included, sucking in the public because he's just so awesome. I mean, he's so infectious. He's like a literal God-given cheerleader for this film, and people love him, and so do I. That's going to be your younger bracket. Not that I'm young, but that's going to be your younger bracket and then some. And then you have the story of the film, Bob Dylan, the 1960s. It covers a wide demographic. I know people are going to say, I don't care about Bob Dylan. Who's Bob Dylan? Or the international voters don't care about Bob Dylan because, they're in wherever they are, I hear you, and I'm not saying it's an invalid argument, but I am telling you the history of the Academy with music biopics, even the ones that frankly are not very good, they usually give it some awards. I do not see a world where A Complete Unknown with 8 Oscars walks away empty-handed. I've actually got Timmy winning for Best Actor. So at a minimum, I think that's what they've got. But watch out. A Complete Unknown and I'm Still Here, too, from Brazil, are two movies that could do some pretty shocking things on Oscar night. I was just mentioning editing earlier and stuff. If you see some of these bottom of the line, lower of the line categories on Oscars night, you start to hear A Complete Unknown. I mean, it's nominated for 8 awards. If you start hearing A Complete Unknown called every half hour, every 20 minutes, somebody's saying A Complete Unknown and people are going on the stage, pay attention. Now, I'm Still Here only has the international feature and the best picture, I think. Oh, and Fernando Torres, of course. So they've got 3. The reason why I think I'm Still Here has a little bit harder of a path, even though that would be the most fun. I mean, if I recorded a reaction, I would fall on the floor if I'm Still Here won Best Picture. Like, the Brazilian people have embraced me so much on this channel in the last month because of my love for that movie, and I was talking to my wife jokingly that I want to move there. Like, I mean, I'm in love with the whole community and the film and the passion behind the film. Like, I would give anything for America to rally around a film like they've rallied around this film. And of course, this is not new territory for them with Central Station and, Fernando Torres' own mother in that film and losing. Don't get me started on the loss to Gwyneth Paltrow. That still haunts me. So this would also be, redemption for that, at least in Best Actress. But I think I'm Still Here's path is definitely more difficult when you're talking about Best Picture because the visibility for that film is going to be a lot less than what I was just talking about with The Complete Unknown. And really all the other ones above it. The visibility is just not going to be there during award season because Fernanda is not nominated anywhere else. She should be. But the Globes are the only body that nominated her prior to this. She already had her moment in the sun at the Globes, and it was great. And she's done some other stuff on interviews and on social media. In fact, she made a social media post about telling people not to harass Carla Sofia Gasson, and then the next day, all those tweets came out. So that was a whole mess, but she did the right thing. And, I love her. I loved her performance. I think she deserves anything she gets this award season, including the Globe that she already won. But her not having that visibility, not being nominated anywhere else, she's not going to have a chance to be on stage to get FaceTime with the voters. For the Academy, yes, but for the public. The movie just came out last week. I mean, the verdict's still out on how it's going to do here in America. I mean, obviously I love it and a lot of other critics love it, but what are the audiences going to say? What, are they going to tell their friends? Are they going to, so it got nominated for Best Picture and Best Actress, which would lead me to believe that more people are going to seek it out. Maybe it'll come on streaming before the Oscars, and that'll help get some eyeballs on it too. But that's going to be the big negative against I'm Still Here somehow winning Best Picture, is because of the visibility and not having the opportunities to kind of market yourself to the voting public prior to the Oscars, because it's just not going to be there at any of these other award shows. And that's going to be really tough for it, because it's going to have to stay in the conversation some other way. You can stay in the conversation naturally if you're nominated every 4 or 5 days at an award show. But if you're not nominated there, or you're not invited there or whatever, then you have to find a way to stay in the conversation. And that's why people like me, even though it only has 7,000 or 8,000 views, I mean, people like me, I'm trying to tell you guys about this movie. I mean, it's easily one of the best movies of the year, and Fernando Torres specifically. So, should it win? Yes. Is it one of the top 5 movies of these 10? Yes. It absolutely deserves to win. I think it just has a really tough assignment to get there. It could be like a Parasite situation. I was literally levitating in the 2019 Oscars when Parasite won Best Picture. I was tweeting. I fell out of the chair in my living room. Sadly wasn't doing a YouTube channel to record it at the time. I mean, it was the most euphoric, brilliant Best Picture winner in modern memory for me. It was my favorite movie of that year, which never happens, by the way. And it would be something like that if I'm Still Here were to upset and win Best Picture. I would just literally float into space, and you would probably never see me again. It would be amazing. I just think it's going to be really tough, because even Parasite had, Parasite won the SAG Ensemble. So they all, got up there with their translator, and it was cute, and Bong Joon-ho, and, the whole thing. So, and it had the director nomination and some other things. So Parasite was a little bit more, recognized that year. But I still hold hope for it, and I put it up to number 5. I think it was 7 or 8 when I did my initial ones. But I moved it up because of the momentum and the word of mouth and the late surge of that movie. Wicked, I left alone. I don't think I'm going to move Wicked until we see what happens on the circuit. After you get past Wicked, and I'm including Emilia Perez in this statement, so hear me out, because this would not have been the case a few days ago. After Wicked on this list, they can't do it. I don't think Emilia Perez can get over the controversies. We've already covered that. The substance is too fucking weird. I mean, half the Academy is not going to watch that, or if they do, they're going to probably turn it off because they're grossed out. I think that's a shame, because I love that movie. I'm a horror guy. So, and then Dune Part 2, they just don't take it seriously because it's a trilogy. I mean, that's the easiest way I can put it to you. They just do not take it seriously because it's a trilogy. And then Nickel Boys, I don't see enough support for that movie, and I don't see enough additional nominations for that movie. Just screenplay. I can't believe it didn't get cinematography. Not only was it in my predictions, it's if you have eyeballs and you know what goes into cinematography and DPs, what? That was the most beautifully shot film I've seen in a long time. It wasn't one of my favorite films of the year, but from a aesthetic visual standpoint, the cinematography was I'm not saying even award it, but how do you not nominate that? So it missed some key ones that it really should have had, to be honest with you. Anjanou Ellis-Taylor could have been in the mix for supporting, but it only got the lone screenplay and Best Picture, which was another shock in the Best Picture category. I would have thought something like Sing Sing or Real Pain, but I'm glad Nickel Boys got in. I just don't think it stands a chance to win. So right now, before we move on to the next category, and I know Emilia Perez sucked up a lot of this conversation, but The Brutalist right now, as I'm sitting here, is the power ranking number 1 for Best Picture. Although I think Anora is literally right there. I'll do another one of these after the Critics' Choice Awards, which could be huge for Anora. So we could be in a little flippy-floppy situation next week. Stay tuned. All right, I went way too long there, so let me show you my lead actress power ranking. Not a lot has changed here. I don't think Demi Moore can be beaten. We talked about the narrative with her. Nearly 50 years in Hollywood without being awarded prior to the Golden Globes. And she said that on stage. Everybody saw it. She's nominated across the circuit in multiple televised awards bodies. That is a narrative that I don't think anybody can penetrate. That armor. She's going to... And the performance is amazing, too. I don't want that to be mistaken. But I think she's going to take that narrative and ride it to the Oscar stage on Oscars night. She's going to win Best Actress. You know, the thing is how I can be proven wrong. And even though I'm a horror head, I do kind of hope I'm proven wrong, because I would probably rank Madison and Torres above Moore in performance for those movies. Madison has been my pick for Best Actress all season. And after seeing Torres and I'm Still Here, she's like right there as well. So can Madison specifically, because like I said earlier, Torres is not nominated anywhere, so this isn't going to apply to her, but can Mikey Madison win some awards in front of the camera? I know her really well. She's one of my Ghostface from Scream. I know her. But a lot of the public does not know her. And Anora was an indie film. You know, it wasn't like $1 billion, action movie that everybody went to see. So she needs to kind of introduce herself to the public for Anora. If that happens, and I think she stands a really, really good chance at Critics' Choice, because all the critics have been raining down on Anora, then we'll see how her speeches go, how her reactions are, and that may play into it a little bit, and we might have a more exciting run on our hands, frankly. But as we're sitting here right now, it's kind of unexciting in this category, because I don't see anybody being able to compete with Demi Moore. Not a whole lot else to say about the narrative for this category, because really the top three are your three that are in contention. And I'm putting Torres there because, again, of momentum. And the performance is so strong. And I think the Academy is seeing that at the right time. They're seeing that movie when you want it to be seen. Right when voting is open. Right at the peak of the momentum. It's a long shot, frankly, but it would be one that I would be ecstatic about. Same thing with Mikey if she were to somehow leapfrog Demi Moore here. Cynthia Erivo, I moved her up, but guess why? Look who's in fifth. Carla Sofia Gascon was in third for me, and I had to drop her down to the bottom, obviously, for everything we've already talked about. We'll see what happens with her nomination. I will be extremely, extremely curious to see if the Academy releases any kind of statement in the coming days about what they clearly know about and cannot ignore, frankly, because of how bad it was. So I'll be interested. But of course, this is what we have right now as I'm recording. She would obviously be at my fifth. Lead actor is one that always kind of encourages people to go into my comment section, because I have had Timothée Chalamet at my number one since like early December. Guys, I've responded to a few of your comments. I'm not moving him from that number one spot until I am convinced to do so based on data that occurs on the award circuit. Right now, as we're sitting here, all Brody has is the Golden Globe. That's it. That's fine, okay? The Globe winner translates to a nomination, but it doesn't always, or even over half of the time, translate to a actor win at the Oscars. So that's still up in the air. Did it give him a bump? Absolutely. It's definitely a two-headed race right now. It's Brody or Chalamet. I mean, people love Ralph Fiennes, and kind of like with the movie, Ralph Fiennes could surprise me and everybody else and win the damn thing. And honestly, I'd be clapping. I mean, that'd be great. He's great in Conclave. All these guys. I mean, all this, when I did that video with my buddy Jonathan, this is a stout 5 right here. Like, it's very rare that you look at a category and you go, anybody in that category could win and I'd be happy. And that's what I say when I see this category. Like, there's nobody in this category that I would be upset if they won. Not one, none of them. I love Coleman Domingo. Sing Sing was one of my favorites of the year, and that movie deserves flowers because it didn't get enough nominations, including missing for picture. Stan was, I've been very vocal about not liking Trump, but Stan's portrayal of Trump and in The Apprentice is one of the more phenomenal performances I saw, one of the more courageous performances I saw this year. And not only that, he had a year to be reckoned with if you factor in A Different Man and some other stuff he did as well. I mean, the guy is like top tier right now. He's at the top of his game. So any of those 5, I'm happy with. But I am commenters. I'm just telling you. I'm not saying I'm a stan for Timmy. I'm not Club Chalamet. But I'm pretty close. I love the dude. I have been following his career since Call Me By Your Name. My daughter, who just recently graduated from college, is a huge, huge fan of his. And we kind of share that together. So I'm always rooting for the guy. And his campaigning on this tour Not only is it free from scandal, which is good, at least so far, but he's killing it. He is killing the game out there. He is absolutely cooking everywhere he goes, and making an impression on all types of demographics, all types of people, and not just in America. I mean, I just saw him doing like a solo dance party on a rooftop in Paris because he was premiering the movie in France this week. He was riding his bike to a premiere in London the other day and playing Beyblades with fans that were waiting in line. I mean, the guy knows what he's doing when it comes to the charisma and selling his product, his movie, and his performance. And on top of that, I've already been vocal on this channel about how great of a performance I think it is. He's my winner. I'm not going to founder from that. Now, if we get into award season and the next one of these I make in a week or two, and Critics' Choices happen, SAG Ensembles happen, whatever, which, Brutalist is not in for that, Complete Unknown is, but Complete Unknown wins SAG Ensemble, Brody wins Critics' Choice, or whatever the combination may be, I'm still not taking him out. What's going to force me to take out Timothée Chalamet for my predicted winner is what happens on the circuit and if Brody doesn't lose. If Brody continues on the strength that he seemingly has now with the Globe win, then it will be irrefutable probably after the SAGs. If he wins Critics' Choice, if he wins SAG, I mean, it's going to be tough. It's not going to be unprecedented if Timmy were to still win after that, but it would be a lot harder for me to predict him this sure-handedly right now. I have a hunch. He's young, but guess what? If he were to win this, the guy that is currently holds the record as being the youngest actor to win an Oscar is Adrien Brody. They're going to know that narrative too. Not a lot of narratives they don't really understand or realize or care, but they know Brody is a previous Oscar winner, and they're going to know most likely that, oh, he was a really young kid when he won that. So that narrative may play into that too. I'm just sticking with my guy, and if he were to go on to win the Oscar, I would be ecstatic, and I would have these videos for receipts. You guys can have them for receipts in my comment section or whatever when he loses, if that happens. But right now, nothing has shown me that Timmy is not at a minimum like 1A, 1B with Adrien Brody. And he's my guy, so I'm sticking with him at the top spot. Supporting actress is a tricky category based on the stuff that's come out with the Emilia Perez scandal. Just like 2 days ago, I was saying that, and this was after a couple scandals or controversies came out, I was still saying it. And then it kept falling downhill and I had to change it. I put Ariana Grande as the projected winner for supporting actress for Wicked. Couple reasons. Obviously, the main reason is because of the backlash over the Emilia Perez stuff. And I think Zoe Saldana is going to catch fire for that, friendly fire for that, and she's going to suffer as a result in the voting, and the preferential ballots. A lot of people may have put her at number 1 before and might think it's okay to put her at 2 or 3 as kind of like a consolation. But if she doesn't have enough number 1s, and if Ariana Grande is getting all those 1s, I don't know if she can overcome it. I really don't know if anybody, this is what I was saying earlier, if everything stays as is and they leave Carla in the race, I don't know that anybody involved in Emilia Perez can win an award. I just think it's too much. So I put her at number 1. And the other reason, aside from the obvious Emilia Perez stories, is Wicked is that feel-good movie, and everybody keeps saying that for Best Picture. I think this is where Wicked benefits from that. Wicked is a part 1, okay? Part 2's coming. If we're saying that for Dune, and we said that for Dune Part 1, by the way, 3 years ago, why aren't we saying that for Wicked? John M. Chu's not in director. It got a lot of nominations. It got 10 nominations. That's a lot, okay? It got some well-deserved ones, but it got some head-scratchers too, like original score and no challengers, by the way. I'm still pissed about that, Academy. But where it can shine and everybody would embrace this is Ariana Grande. It really, really sucks for Zoe Saldana because up until like 2 or 3 days ago, she was like, here's your Oscar. I mean, they probably already put her name on it. So it's really tough for her, and I feel bad for her. She's been in the industry forever. If this pans out, of course, I feel bad for her. She's in billion-dollar, Avatar, Guardians of the Galaxy, MCU. She's in all these projects that are like funneling money into Hollywood, and she can't get awarded. It's tough, and this would obviously not be by any fault of hers. just the climate around the controversy. So it's tough. But because of what's going on in the news, and because of my thinking that they're going to award Wicked in here, and maybe one bottom of the line category, but I think this is the big award for Wicked on Oscars night, is Ariana Grande. Right now, she's my front runner to win it. And that just changed in the last couple days. Talked about Zoe already. I think Monica Barbaro shot up a space because of the momentum of A Complete Unknown and her kind of surprise nomination. I predicted that nomination, but across the board, it was generally a surprise. She's phenomenal as Joan Baez, and the same deal with Timothée Chalamet as Bob Dylan. So many different age brackets and demographics are going to respond to that performance and to that film. And I think she's going to benefit from that by getting quite a few votes. I don't think it's enough for her to win, but I think she's really close, and it could be. That could change too. Isabella Rossellini is well loved in the industry. She's been around forever. Obviously, folks who were in the industry, everybody knows the name, everybody knows her. She stands a chance to kind of upset. I don't know. I don't see it because of the 7-minute on-screen time in the movie and her longevity in Hollywood and some of the performances that she's given. You look at that versus her performance in Conclave, which is great. It's just so minuscule in comparison to some of the other stuff she's done, in my opinion. And then Felicity Jones, I'm leaving at the bottom of the 5. I don't think The Brutalist is going to max out, which I feel like is what it would have to do for her to win. I feel like it would have to be an Oppenheimer situation where it was like a sweep, or like multiple wins across the board. I think Brutalist is maybe like 3 or 4 wins, but I don't think it's like a heavy-handed, let's give it everything. So I don't think Felicity Jones is going to benefit from that wave for The Brutalist love. Ariana Grande. Man, here we go. I've been there all night. Ariana. All right, and then for support, we got a couple more categories. For supporting actor, this one should be very easy because I don't think anybody can beat Kieran Culkin. He's still at my number 1. Nothing's really changed that. A Real Pain might stand a little bit of a chance in original screenplay for Jesse Eisenberg, but otherwise, this is the award for A Real Pain. It didn't even get in for Best Picture. I'm leaving Guy Pearce at number 2, but I think Edward Norton might actually be Kieran Culkin's biggest competition because of that impact and momentum of A Complete Unknown, like I've been speaking of. But I think this is a category that really doesn't afford a lot of discussion right now because it's Kieran Culkin's. I mean, I think he's going to sweep the season. Will this prediction change? Will I move some of the runner-ups around a little bit? Maybe Edward Norton will be 2, whatever. Yeah, maybe. But unless some shocking surprises happen at the other award shows leading up to the voting closing, I don't see how Kieran Culkin loses. He is, much like Zoe Saldana was about a week ago, he is the winner. I mean, you could literally have his statue shipped to Hollywood right now. And the last category I want to touch on before we wrap up, sorry the video went long, but I wanted to get my Emilia Perez kind of off my chest there. But the Power Rankings videos in general will not be this long going forward. Unless I check Twitter before I record it, I guess. Another pretty quick one here. Jacques Audard obviously dropped all the way down to 5. Not only is the film under extreme scrutiny right now and the controversies we've been talking about in this video, but he said some things that were not very favorable to the Latino communities that he was representing in the film. They're not happy. Latin America's not happy. I've even seen it in my comments that I should be mentioning that, which I just did that. But he's not in the mix anymore. I had him in the mix initially, and the backlash for that movie now is just too severe for him to be in consideration, even though he is a beloved French filmmaker among members of the Academy. And if they did give him the award for this, that would be such a bad statement from them. I mean, it would be a horrible thing to award him for that based on what I've seen in the news. Again, if that's turned around and something comes to light that makes it less horrible, then I don't know what that would be, but maybe not. But I just don't see how you can. It's too tarnished. Even if that was your vote a week ago, and you were like, I'm going to vote for Jacques, you can't now. And I'm saying that's what I would say. I mean, I just don't see how you can. And if you do, I don't know how you would accept the public's response to that because it wouldn't be good. I think Brady Corbet is your winner. I already kind of talked about this a little bit. I think The Brutalist is going to, as we're sitting here right now, I think that's your best picture, best director combo win, which does happen frequently, not always, but frequently. Unless Anora piles up. Problem with me doing this, predictions and power rankings, is I don't know that until Oscars night. Because then I'll know, oh, I missed. That's not it. It's not Brutalist. But as we're sitting here right now, my anticipation is that Corbet and The Brutalist are going to have a good night, especially in light of all these controversies that have been coming out. And then Sean Baker's right there for Anora, and James Mangold is rising because of the momentum of The Complete Unknown, just like everything else in that category. I did want to mention the Brady Corbet kind of AI controversy, too, around The Brutalist, because I haven't really talked about that. I've been talking about the Emilia Perez stuff mostly. I read a lot about that because I don't, I'll get on ChatGPT once or twice a week and, ask something stupid or whatever, but I'm not into the AI world. I do not want AI in movies. I'll just tell you. It is in movies, and I hope everybody realizes that. It's in probably every Hollywood production over a certain budget or whatever. But I don't want it in a situation where it's going to hinder the production or employees that would normally be working, as a human being in that role. Never have, was completely supportive of the SAG-AFTRA strikes last year because of it. All the safeguards were put in place for that, and I'm glad, and now we're back to work, right? With the thing with The Brutalist and what I read and what I've heard, and even hearing from people on the production team and in the editing room for that film, the AI that was used in that film, and I don't need to give you the whole story. I mean, you can Google it, but was very minuscule because it was when Brody and Felicity Jones were doing voiceover, reading a letter in Hungarian that they were mailing each other. It's like a 2-minute scene. Literally, out of a 3.5-hour movie. Brody and Jones had a Hungarian dialect coach that they worked with to learn how to speak Hungarian. The problem is that natives to Hungary can spot a Hungarian accent that was learned after the fact. So they know immediately if it's a native Hungarian accent, if you were born there, or if you learned it as a second language. Which, of course, that's what happened because Brody and Jones didn't speak Hungarian as their first language, so they did have to learn it. So, because of that, natives know that. And Corbet knew that as a filmmaker. So, they brought in this AI re-speecher. That's a Ukrainian business, by the way, which I think is great. And they used it to essentially round out the ending of phrases and vowels to make it more authentic to a Hungarian-born accent. Brody's performance in The Brutalist is nothing short of phenomenal. It's an absolutely otherworldly, captivating acting performance. Extremely well-deserved for his nomination. The use of AI and how I understand it was used in what I just explained to you has no bearing on literally anything he does in that movie. Because even that AI that I just talked to you about is a voiceover of him reading a letter. Everything, the other 3 hours and 28 minutes of that film, this dude is acting like he's not going to see tomorrow. I mean, you will levitate seeing, if you follow the craft of acting, you won't believe what he does in this movie. So I don't see it as a deal breaker. I'll just put it that way. The movie as a whole, I don't see it as a deal breaker. It's still a tremendous feat. Do I wish they had not used it? Yes. I wish there had been some other way around that, or to just let it go, or whatever. But it also speaks to the authenticity that Corbet and the filmmakers were looking for with The Brutalist, because they wanted it to be a very authentic, pure piece that's rooted in these historical landscapes coming from Hungary after the Holocaust, Jewish people, etc. So they wanted it to be as real, like you were there if you lived in that era. So I get the reason why they did it. They also had the okay of the actors. The SAG-AFTRA deal, actors had to agree to anything that had to do with their performance included with AI or involving AI. And they did. Brody and Jones said, yeah, it's fine. I can't even tell or whatever. And the editors were talking about this in an interview because to them it's not a big deal because it didn't affect the quality of the production to a point where it was fake in any way, or altered in any way. So that's why somebody even that's vocal against AI in movies, me, is okay with this particular controversy. I'm not really giving any more thought to it if I was casting a vote, which of course I'm not. But if I was an Academy voter, I would kind of let it soak in, read about it, like, oh, why did they use AI? That I don't like that. What's going on? And that was initially my reaction. In fact, I tweeted initially, hey, filmmakers, stop using AI, without really knowing the full story. And then once I heard the full story, I still want them to stop using AI, but it makes a little more sense and it's a little less problematic after I heard the whole story. I also know about the architectural drawings that the generative AI did at the end of the film, which is also a very short scene in the epilogue. I can't give it away by telling you the specifics, but they show some of Laszlo Toth's architecture at the end of the film, and apparently the buildings that you see in that piece were created by generative AI, but the generative AI is not what's in the film. It was used as inspiration for the actual artist and the production team to make the buildings. So again, you don't see AI in the movie. It was just used to give them a springboard on what to sketch, basically, for the architecture. So that I'm not really upset about either. I mean, I was going on ChatGPT the other day and I asked it to draw, what it thinks my perfect day looks like, just for fun. I'm not going to take that picture and put it in a movie or on one of my videos, but sometimes you use these things for inspiration, especially in today's day and age, and it's not going anywhere. I mean, it's advancing every single day. It gets more intuitive and more advanced, and we just have to find a way to kind of coexist with it. And especially in the case like with The Brutalist, how it's a $10 million production that looks like $100 million. I mean, literally. I mean, it's such an epic, grand scale film. And, if he had to use AI for that 2-minute scene to fix a couple A's and E's to save millions of dollars to put out what he put out on a shoestring budget, like I said, I would have preferred him not to use it, but he did. And based on the facts that I've heard, I'm not super bothered by that anymore. So I just wanted to touch on that. I'm kind of like the person that's like, get AI out of film. But in this case, he used it. It's out. Here's the story. Here's what we did. And I like that also the production team and the editors and Corbet have kind of said, yeah, this is what we did. This is why we used it. Long video, guys. But there you go. My power rankings and then some. Man, we had a lot to talk about tonight. For the 6 top of the line categories, I will do this again after the Critics' Choice Awards. That's next Friday night. I'm also going to do a reaction of some kind. I don't know if I'm going to watch it and film myself watching it and kind of cut that together for you, or if maybe I'll do a live stream after the awards. I'll probably put up a poll and see what you guys prefer, because I can do a live stream right when the show ends and take questions. I've done that before too. But in one way or another, I'll be covering the Critics' Choice Awards and how that impacts the Oscars race, and then I will be updating my power rankings accordingly. Hopefully no more controversies come out before then. Hopefully somebody has taken Carla Sofia Gasson's phone away from her. Let's get it together out there, guys. Let's love each other. Let's be safe. Let's love the movies. I really appreciate you guys tuning in for this video. What did you think of my power rankings? Was I right on or was I off? What do you think is in the lead right now for Best Picture? Is it The Brutalist or is it something else? Let me know down below. Thanks for watching this video. I'll see you guys out here next time in the garage.